Sitting at my desk, I started reflecting on the 30 years since Maggie and I got married, rewinding the memories to our honeymoon and all those wonderful moments that stand out in my life. Remembering that time in Hawaii with Maggie fills me with nostalgia and gratitude. It was truly amazing, a captivating chapter that I'll always cherish. Right from the beginning, it felt like we entered a magical world, leaving behind the everyday hustle and bustle and finding a peace that's hard to describe. Walking along Waikiki Beach with the sand between our toes and the sound of the waves whispering secrets, we were surrounded by beauty. The air was filled with the sweet scent of plumeria, a constant reminder of the love and tranquility enveloping us. But it wasn't just the stunning views that made our honeymoon unforgettable. It was the moments we shared. Exploring lush jungles and discovering hidden waterfalls felt like encountering treasures of Mother Nature. Standing together, we were in awe of the beauty and power surrounding us. Our cliffside retreat in Maui was breathtaking, with views that seemed to go on forever. Every sunset painted the sky with vibrant colors, and holding each other close, we felt overwhelmed with love and devotion. Evenings were like a romantic melody, with candlelit dinners on the beach under a starry sky, enjoying fresh seafood and local delicacies. But what truly made it magical was seeing the love shining in Maggie's eyes. Hawaii wasn't just a destination for us. It became the heart of our love story, filled with moments and dreams we shared. Looking back on our honeymoon, I'm reminded of the beauty and depth of our relationship, reigniting our love and strengthening our bond, and giving us moments of pure happiness and peace. I hold on to these memories from our time in that lover's paradise with immense gratitude in my heart. 30 years later, deep in thought, my secretary walked in and found me staring out the window. "Jason, what's making you so happy lately? Win the lottery?" she joked. It hit me that I'd been smiling and content for 2 weeks. I shared that my wife had been especially loving and attentive, making me feel valued and loved again after years. It felt like a second honeymoon, and I couldn't wait to spend more time with her. Acting like a teenager in love, I didn't want this happiness to end. Maggie and I have a solid marriage, but after 30 years, excitement can fade into routine. Yet, Maggie had been unusually affectionate, seeking intimacy almost every night and bringing back aspects of our relationship we hadn't explored in years. I never suspected her affections meant anything beyond rekindling our marriage. I planned a surprise romantic evening, leaving work early with a smile. I got 24 roses, her favorite wine, and chocolate-covered cherries. Tonight, I'll show my love and surprise her with a 7-night cruise, celebrating our enduring love. Entering the house through the garage, I went up the kitchen steps. Instead of finding my wife, Maggie, our 29-year-old daughter, Brandi, sat at the table. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and asked, "Hey, baby, where's your mom?" 2 weeks earlier, Brandi had a conversation with her mother. "Mom, I'm not sure about this. I love Dad very much, and I'm afraid that if I go through with this, I'll hurt him." "Brandi, Dad loves you, and he will understand. You yourself said that you need something more than what you've had before, and Dad is not getting any younger. I know he will understand your needs and allow you to have this one-time pleasure." "Mom, there's no way I can face Dad and tell him I'm going on a date with another man. I just can't do it." "Then let me do it. Alexander will be waiting for you at the restaurant at 7 in the evening, and you'll be ready to leave by 6. When Dad gets home, I'll explain everything to him, and you'll get the experience you crave." "Honey, I agreed to this date, but I have doubts. This feels wrong, and I shouldn't go. How will I be able to look your father in the eye for the next 2 weeks, knowing that I agreed to go on a date with another man?" "Well, I suggest you don't tell him anything. Show him how much you love him during these 2 weeks. Let him know he has nothing to worry about. And when I explain everything, he'll understand it's not about love, just new friendships and a little fun. Reach out to him, rock his world, and when I explain the situation that evening, he'll welcome you back with open arms. Dad loves you and is ready to do anything for you. He always gave you what you wanted, showing his love for you." "Probably yes, maybe you're right. It's just one date, and it doesn't mean I'm leaving your father for another man. Having a fun night out 30 years later shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to show your dad how wonderful he is and how much I love him every night until date night, and then when I get back, I'll try to make him the happiest man in the world. Mom, just make him feel loved and appreciated. He's a great guy and will give you this one-of-a-kind experience. Now, I have to get home to cook dinner for Mike. Thanks, baby. And say hi to Mike. When will you two give us grandchildren?" "Soon. We've already talked and planned to start working on it in a few months, Brandi said before heading home. Maggie found herself alone in the art studio Jason had built for her behind their house, facing his latest project. Lately, she struggled with creativity, burdened by thoughts of being with another man. However, Brandi's advice echoed in her mind, and suddenly her brushes danced on the canvas, breathing life into vibrant colors and emotive landscapes. Confident she was doing right by herself, Maggie sat in solitude, feeling peace wash over her guilt. Jason might be upset initially, but I believe I can make him see. I truly adore him, and he's been an exceptional husband and father. I'll be the best wife and demonstrate my love for him. That evening, as part of her plan to shower him with affection, Maggie adorned his favorite baby doll nightgown after her shower, styled her hair, and applied makeup. Greeting Jason as he returned home, Maggie, clad in the nightgown and heels, guided him to the bedroom, where she undressed him. Surprising him with a long, neglected act of enthusiasm, she pleased him below the belt. His smile filled her with warmth and happiness, prompting her to wonder why she hadn't done this sooner. Jason, this was the best welcome home in a long time. What's the occasion, honey? I just wanted to show you how special you are and how much I love you. Did you enjoy it? I did. It's been so long that I forgot how much I missed it. I felt pleased. Drawing him onto the bed, they shared passionate kisses for minutes. It was the most fulfilling intimacy they had experienced in years, leading Maggie to reconsider her date with Alexander. Over the following weeks, their intimacy reached new heights, and Jason transformed into a happier man, smiling, laughing, and displaying affection as before. Maggie found herself happier than she had been in a while and began to reconsider her plans for the date night. She even discussed the positive changes with Brandi, questioning if she still needed the planned experience. Mom, this is fantastic, but don't rush to cancel yet. Let's see how the next 2 weeks unfold. Just enjoy each other and see where it goes. There's no need to cancel just yet. We'll reassess in 2 weeks, and you can always cancel last minute. I'm sure Alexander will understand, but remember, this opportunity may not come again. All right. Maybe you're right. Remind me about Alexander's situation. I know he's your friend's father, but tell me more about him. Sure thing, Mom. When his wife, Mary, was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, he took time off work and stayed by her side until her passing. She was the love of his life, and after her death, he was lost. He became depressed and withdrew from everything except work. When Mary and I suggested he start dating, he confessed he didn't know how to be with anyone else. Listening to him made me tear up, and I realized I might have a solution for both of you. Brandi proceeded to tell her mother about Alexander's deep admiration for her and how he longed for companionship. She described their conversation and Alexander's eagerness to meet Maggie. So you see, Mom, he thinks you're beautiful and would love to spend time with you. I'll give him your number and you two can arrange a date. He's about 10 years younger than you, and I know you'll hit it off. He just needs someone to communicate with and befriend, and I believe you can help each other. The next day, Alexander called Maggie, and after a wonderful conversation, he invited her to become his companion and spend the night with him. When he complimented her beauty in the photo and expressed how wonderful it would be for her to go on a date with him, she felt like a schoolgirl. The excitement of doing something so different and his flirting made her feel butterflies in her stomach. She agreed to the date and told him that she was looking forward to meeting him. He said he would pick her up, but she replied that she would prefer to meet him at the restaurant. They texted each other daily and flirted more and more as the evening of their date approached. By the event of the date, Maggie's text messages would not have withstood the simplest test of a wife's fidelity. She was constantly excited, imagining what she had to do. She tried not to forget about Jason, and every evening she put more and more energy into their lovemaking. Now Jason walked around with a grin on his face, and Maggie walked around with an uncontrollable desire for sex. This was a new level that she enjoyed beyond her dreams. I loved my daughter and considered her the most beautiful girl in the world. I was so proud of how she had developed into the woman she has become today. I wish I had spent more time with her as she grew up, but I worked hard to give them a good life and tried to always be there for her as much as possible. I smiled when I saw her, but I was embarrassed. Sweetheart, what are you doing here and where's your mom? I asked. She watched as I set down 24 roses, a bottle of wine, and a box of chocolates. I've got a special surprise for your mom tonight, and I can't wait to see her. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out travel plans and tickets for a 7-day cruise on the new yacht Love. I am whisking your mom away on a 7-day cruise? and I can't wait to see the look on her face when she finds out. Don't say anything when she gets home. I want to surprise her, Dad said. Hearing her call me Daddy always made me smile, remembering her as a little girl sitting on my lap. But something seemed off. Tears welled in her eyes, and she was out of breath, clearly worried about what she had to tell me. Dad, we need to talk, she said, a tear sliding down her cheek. Concern flashed across my face. What's wrong? Is something the matter with Mom? No, Mom's fine. Please sit down and let me explain, I replied. After a pause, she spoke again. Dad, you know how much Mom loves you, and she told me how great things have been between you two lately. Yes, and I love her too. That's why I want to show her how much she means to me. Seeing her tears, I realized her news wasn't what she expected. I'm really sorry, Daddy, but Mom went on a date. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process her words. Her tears flowed as anger ignited within me. Brandi, what are you saying? Where's your mom? I demanded, my voice loud enough to make her recoil in fear. Mom loves you very much, Daddy, and I hope you won't take this the wrong way. But Mom went on a date with another man and won't be back until tomorrow. She couldn't tell you herself, so I volunteered to break it to you because she didn't want to hurt you. It's just one night and she'll be back tomorrow. Is this some kind of joke? I can't believe this. Your mother would never do anything to betray me like this. We were so close and loving. This can't be real. Dad, she loves you. She just needed something more in life, at least once after 30 years of marriage. Nothing's changing between you two, except she might love you even more for understanding. I stared at my daughter. Brandi, why are you involved in this? Your mom shouldn't have dragged you into it, and I should be talking to her, not you. How did she get you into all this? Dad, Mom and I have always been close, and we tell each other everything. She said things had slowed down between you two in the bedroom, and she no longer felt desired. My friend's dad lost his wife a few years ago, and he also needed companionship, so I sort of introduced them. I stood up abruptly, knocking over my chair. What on earth? Are you serious? You set your mom up on a date with another man? Is that what you're telling me? Lowering her head and staring at the floor, she stayed silent. Meanwhile, I paced back and forth in the kitchen, trying to grasp the situation. Damn it, Brandi, answer me! I yelled, towering over her. Did you set this up? Is my wife, your mother, on a date with your friend's dad because of you? At my angry outburst, saliva flew out of my mouth. I'm really sorry, Daddy, but yes, it sounds bad when you say it like that, but I did it out of love for my friend's parents. Holy hell, what have you done? Love for your friend's parents? What about your love for me? Am I just some trash you can disregard and expect me to accept whatever you come up with? Where is she now? And why did you say she won't be back until tomorrow? Dad, they went to a restaurant. I don't know which one. And then they're spending the night together just this once. She'll be back tomorrow, and Daddy, she loves only you. She's been telling me for the past 2 weeks how much she loves you and doesn't want you to get hurt. It's just one date and one night. She thought you'd understand and give her this one chance. So is that it? I believed her newfound affection over the last 2 weeks was genuine, but now you're saying it was just her way of alleviating guilt? Well, this won't end well, I assure you. Still in tears, she pleaded, Dad, it's not like that at all. She never pretended or hurt you. On the contrary, she did everything possible to show you she loved you. Daddy, can't you give her one night? You know she loves you and can't imagine life without you. She mentioned how she looked forward to your retirement and spending time with your grandchildren. Mike and I plan to have kids, and we need both of you. Well, isn't that ironic? That ship sailed when she agreed to go on a date with someone who isn't me. Who is this guy? He's my friend Mary's dad, and he's really nice. You'll like him, Daddy. I think you have a lot in common. Oh, sure, we could be best pals. So you think I could befriend a man who knowingly dates a married woman, my wife? Maybe we can be drinking buddies, and I can let him borrow your mom on weekends? Is that your plan for me? Brandi slumped into her chair, realizing a grave mistake in her plan. My anger, expressed in words she never wanted to hear, shook her to her core, sending a chill down her spine as she cowered. After pacing the room, I managed to regain control, turning to my daughter with venom in my voice. My hurt and anguish were evident, making her feel small and culpable for her part in the ordeal. Listen carefully, Brandi. Leave now. I need time alone to comprehend what you two did to me tonight. I don't want to see or hear from you. No calls, no messages, ever. Your betrayal is unforgivable. You are dead to me. Understand? I'm no longer your father, and you're no longer my daughter. Get out of my house and never speak to me again." Brandi wept openly, her head in her hands. "Dad, please don't say that. I love you, and I want to stay here tonight. Mom and I planned for me to stay with you. We don't want you to be alone." "The disrespect you've shown makes me question if you ever truly respected or loved me as your father. You're your mother's daughter. I worked tirelessly all these years to provide for you both, and this is the thanks I get? Turns out I'm just a meal ticket, never earning respect from either of you." Amid tears and sobs, she pleaded, "Dad, I love you. Please reconsider. Let Mom explain everything tomorrow. You've had 30 wonderful years together, and I know you love her. Give her this one thing, and she won't leave you, Daddy. She loves you. She can have whatever she wants, but she'll never have me again. Forgiveness is beyond me. Everyone involved will face consequences, including the man who took my wife. Now go. You've shown your true colors. You still have your mother. Nothing changes for you two. Brandi, you're no longer my daughter. Leave." With tears streaming down her face, she fled the house in agony, a pain she had never known. She never imagined her father's reaction would be so severe. Had he truly disowned her? For the first time, she realized she may have crossed a line in helping her mom with this scheme. She knew he loved them both, but his fury was clear, and she prayed for his forgiveness. Right after Brandi left, I dialed Maggie's cell, but it went straight to voicemail. I left her multiple messages, pleading for her to call back and come home. When my calls went unanswered, even after a few drinks, I resorted to texting her the same plea. Still, no response. By 2 a.m., it dawned on me she wasn't coming back or answering my calls. Exhausted from self-pity, I stared blankly at the TV, bombarded with more bleak news, my world transforming into a nightmare instantly. Reflecting on our 30-year marriage, the highs, Brandi's milestones, the once frequent intimacy now replaced by routine, I felt a pang of loss. Though our sex life had become predictable, there were no complaints, and post-coitus we always embraced, drifting off in each other's arms. Daily we exchanged "I love yous," rarely argued, yet now it seemed those words held little significance. Peering out at the art studio I built for Maggie, a sanctuary where she poured her creativity for 2 decades, I realized it held more importance than I did. Though proud of her achievements, I felt relegated to the sidelines, but her happiness mattered most to me. The talk with Brandi hit me like a ton of bricks. Learning she wanted to be with another man blindsided me, no warning at all. Despite years of hard work to support my family, I failed to notice she wasn't happy with our marriage. It stung to know she shared this with Brandi instead of talking to me, fueling my anger and humiliation. Reflecting on my life, home, and future, I remembered the house and property I inherited from my grandfather, solely in my name before our marriage. No mortgage made me think. Fueled by alcohol and fury, I plotted ways to hurt Maggie like she hurt me. Staring out at her studio, a surge of strength washed over me, perhaps from alcohol or the pain of betrayal. With renewed vigor, I sprang into action. I made countless trips to our bedroom, gathering all of her belongings and relocating them to the studio. Shoes, clothes, jewelry, all piled in the center. I then gathered photo albums, including our wedding pictures, placing them atop the heap. Remembering items in the attic, I retrieved her wedding dress, baby clothes, and more, adding to the growing mound. It amazed me how much she amassed over the years. I removed her pictures from the walls and added them to the pile. Sculptures, sketches, all her cherished possessions, now part of the ever-expanding heap. It was already 5 a.m., and I felt tense. I decided to wait until 6 a.m. before taking action, giving her a chance to return or respond to my calls and messages. If I didn't hear back or she wasn't home, I'd proceed with my plan. I double-checked the house, ensuring everything important to her was in the studio. At 5:30, I fetched a 20-liter gasoline can from the garage and headed to the studio, preparing for 6 a.m. In the meantime, I went online, canceled our joint credit cards, transferred money to our accounts, withdrew cash from the safe, and packed a few suitcases. Loading them into my truck, I planned to stay away until the lawyer sorted things out. Giving her another 5 minutes to return, at 6:05, with my last hope fading, I poured gasoline over the pile and along the studio walls. After a deep sigh and brief hesitation, I lit a match, igniting her belongings. The fire spread fast, visible from the street before I could escape. Her world burned swiftly. Driving along the highway, a profound realization hit me, accentuated by my distraught state. Overwhelmed by sorrow, tears flowed. it dawned on me that my once happy marriage had met the same fate as the studio, consumed by flames. Unexpectedly, the fire spread to the back porch, endangering the house. Thankfully, firefighters contained the blaze, saving the house from complete destruction. However, it suffered significant smoke damage and required repairs before it could be lived in again. Meanwhile, I checked into a highway motel 90 miles away from the charred remnants of my marriage, paying in cash to avoid detection. Exhausted and overwhelmed, I turned off my phone and collapsed into bed, falling into a deep sleep until noon. Upon waking, I found dozens of missed calls and texts from Brandi, Maggie, and the sheriff. After exiting the Uber, I met Alexander at the restaurant, feeling both nervous and excited to see the handsome young man waiting for me at the reception desk. He smiled upon seeing me, appreciating my little black dress, black sheer tights, and matching high heels. His gaze lingered on my exposed cleavage, accentuated by my black bra. Earlier in the day, I had spent several hours at the salon to ensure my hair and makeup were perfect. I wanted this one occasion to be thrilling, unforgettable, and flawless for him. My companion seemed pleased with what he saw, and the way he adjusted his growing manhood underscored his reaction. Feeling more confident as I realized he liked what he saw, I greeted him with a tender kiss. We started at the bar, sitting on bar stools, and when I stood up, I noticed his gaze on my nylon-covered legs down to my panties. We exchanged smiles as he ordered our drinks. Deciding to switch off my phone to avoid any interruptions, I was aware that this night was a one-time event and resolved to savor every moment. There was undeniable chemistry between us, and we conversed as if we were old friends. Finding myself touching his arm and flirting, actions I seldom did with anyone, including Jason, I was determined to unleash my inner confidence and relish the experience. After finishing our second glass, the gracious hostess informed us that our table was ready and escorted us to our seats. The dinner was delightful, and I enjoyed our conversation and time together. When he inquired if I still wanted to spend the night with him, I removed my heels and teasingly placed my foot between his legs. His smile widened upon noticing my red toenails peeking through the sheer nylon covering my foot, and he suggested it was time to depart. Holding hands, he led me to his pre-booked hotel room. As the elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, the reality of what I was about to do hit me, and fleeting thoughts of Jason crossed my mind. Sensing my hesitation, Alexander pulled me close to his sturdy frame. Meeting his gaze, he bestowed upon me a romantic kiss unlike any I had experienced before. In that moment, all thoughts of my husband and marriage faded away. Tonight, I belonged to him, ready to embrace and revel in this experience. Once in the room, he wasted no time in unzipping my dress. When it dropped to the floor, he shed his own clothes and stood before me. Spinning me around, he praised my appearance and removed my bra before laying me on the bed. The experience was so sensual and loving that I eagerly anticipated what would come next. Kneeling, I devoted 10 minutes to admiring his physique. Overwhelmed, he swiftly removed my pantyhose and insisted I put my heels back on, finding them alluring, which made me feel somewhat provocative. Throughout our intimacy, he showered me with kisses, displaying remarkable skill. Fleetingly, I thought, I should get Jason to do this. It's so enticing. Oh no, comparing again. Enough! Locking eyes, he uttered, I love you, Maggie. His unexpected declaration deeply touched me, evoking an almost religious feeling that moved me to tears of joy. We made love several times that night and once more in the morning, each encounter as passionate as the last. It marked the pinnacle of my sexual experiences, and I was content for allowing it with Alexander. As thoughts of Jason intruded, I endeavored to focus on the man embracing me tightly. Bathed in sunlight filtering through the curtains, he tenderly kissed me and caressed my hair. Maggie, as I mentioned last night, I meant it. You're incredible, so sensual and sexy, and I think I love you. I want to spend more time with you. Can we see each other again? Apprehension gripped me, and I responded gently, Alexander, it was amazing, and you're a wonderful man, but I'm happily married, and I can't repeat this. It was a one-time thing, and I cherished it. You were fantastic. You're a great lover, and I relished every moment. Maggie, please consider it before you reject me. Your husband doesn't seem to mind, and I can make you happy. Just think about it, please, before you decide. Okay, I'll think about it. But for now, this is the best I can offer. With another deep kiss, he held me close, and I surrendered to his embrace. If I weren't married to Jason, I'd be with Alexander in an instant. But Jason is my husband, and I hoped he could forgive me for what I had just done. After breakfast, we left the hotel, and as Alexander drove me home, I decided to turn on my phone, which had been off since our date the previous night. To my shock, it was flooded with missed calls and texts. Among the messages, Jason struck me particularly hard, inducing a sharp sense of guilt. The realization that his suffering, for which I felt responsible, brought tears to my eyes. Before I had a chance to proceed to the next message, my phone rang just as we were entering my neighborhood. It was my child, urgently inquiring about my whereabouts. I reassured them, saying I was nearly home, only to be informed of a fire at our house. The news had been trying to reach me all night, apparently, but my phone had been off. My immediate concern shifted to their father, who, according to my child, was missing. No one knew of his whereabouts, and he wasn't responding to calls. With a sinking feeling, I promised to call back as soon as I arrived, deeply troubled by the unfolding situation. When Alexander turned the corner onto my street, I saw a fire truck and police in front of our house. I didn't see any damage at the front of the house and asked the firefighters what happened. "Are you the owner of the house?" he asked. Since all the neighbors were watching me as I stood with an unfamiliar handsome man, my companion. "Yes, I'm Maggie Spencer." "Well, Mrs. Spencer, we were able to save the house. Only the back porch was damaged, but I'm afraid you won't be able to stay here until you call the experts to clean up the smoke from inside your house. The majority of the damage was to the small cottage behind your home." "I'm afraid he's completely lost." I felt my legs give out when Alexander caught me and helped me sit on the curb. "My studio? Is she damaged?" "Sorry, Mrs. Spencer. All that's left of her is smoldering ashes. We'll try to figure out the cause of the fire, but in the meantime, the police detective has a few questions for you." I quickly stood up and ran to the back of the house before Sergeant Wilson could ask me any questions. He caught up with me as I stood in front of the remains of my most prized possession. I immediately knew that Jason must have done this as revenge for my actions. "Mrs. Spencer, do you know what happened here?" asked Sergeant Wilson. "No. I wasn't there last night, and I have no idea about anything." "Are you her husband?" he asked, turning to Alexander. "No, just a friend." I felt my face turn red with embarrassment as the sergeant gave me a knowing look and asked where my husband was. I said I don't know. When he asked where I was last night, I timidly said that I was with Alexander at the Hilton Hotel in the city center. The looks thrown at me by the sergeant and his assistant made me realize the seriousness of my situation. I just admitted that I didn't spend the night with my husband, who also disappeared. The detective now had questions. "Mrs. Spencer, are you and your husband separated? Do you know where he was last night?" "No, we are a happy married couple." And then I realized how stupid it sounded after admitting that I spent the night with another man. "Do you know where he is?" "No, he doesn't answer calls. We'll want to talk to him, so when you talk to him, please give him my number," he said, handing me his business card. I was shaking with anger and fear, anger at the loss of my refuge and all the work I had created over the years. Everything is gone. Forever. Fear of thinking that Jason could be so angry as to do this, and what it would mean for my marriage. I needed to talk to him as soon as possible. I called Brandi. "Brandi, do you know where your father is?" "No, I haven't talked to him since yesterday evening." "Why didn't you stay here with him like we planned?" "Mom, he threw me out and said that I was no longer his daughter." Hearing these words, I felt a chill rush through my body. Jason would never utter such words, and if he did, it would be even worse than I imagined. Upon entering the house, I noticed smoke damage on the walls and detected a foul odor lingering in our home. It was evident that living here under such conditions was impossible. As I traversed through our residence, I decided to gather clothes and some personal items for a few days. However, upon entering the bedroom, I was alarmed to find everything missing, causing panic to surge within me. Realizing that all my clothes, shoes, and personal belongings were gone, my heart sank as I searched my nightstand for my wedding rings, only to find them absent. Why had I left my rings behind? What was I thinking? If Jason saw them on my dresser, he might have assumed I had abandoned him and our marriage. How foolish and selfish of me. In a state of complete panic, I frantically searched every room in the house, only to discover that all my possessions were gone. A dreadful thought crossed my mind. Had he truly destroyed everything? Was there nothing left? Rushing out of the house, I returned to the studio to examine the remnants more closely. Amidst the debris, I spotted picture frames and partially destroyed clothing. It was evident that Jason had not merely accepted my absence, but had obliterated everything significant to me, effectively cutting me out of his life in one swift blow. I called Brandi in tears, recounting what had transpired and expressing my need for a place to stay. Alexander swiftly offered me accommodation, but he was the last person I wanted to see. Politely, I declined, explaining that I needed solitude and requesting him to leave. Hurt by my abruptness, he departed, leaving me to lament my actions and the man with whom I had spent the night. Though I knew I was at fault, I couldn't help but blame him for my selfish act of betrayal, when the true blame lay with me. Brandi, I've lost your father. Mom, don't say that. Dad loves you. Honey, he burned everything. My clothes, paintings, and studio, everything. He left me with nothing, not even a place to live. He ignores my calls and won't pick up. I've hurt him the most, and I don't blame him. What I did is unforgivable. I shouldn't have gone on that date. I should have just talked to him. We could have worked things out, but my selfishness drove him away. If I were in his shoes, I wouldn't be able to take me back. What do I do now? I have no home or clothes. Mom, don't blame yourself. I share some of the blame, and you can stay with us until your house is restored. We'll buy you new clothes this afternoon and get you settled in by evening. Brandi, all my artworks, paintings, and sculptures are gone. 30 years of marriage and 2 decades of my artistic creations were destroyed, leaving me utterly alone. I have nothing left to live for. Maggie openly sobbed as neighbors glanced at her from the street. Oh God, your father is calling. I'll call you back. Struggling with the buttons, desperately attempting to answer the call, she nearly collapsed. But at the last moment, she managed to connect. Jason, is that you? Hi, Maggie. How are you? Jason, where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. No, Maggie, I already know everything from your daughter. Yes, your daughter, not mine. You both are dead to me. And this might be our final conversation. Jason, please don't say that. I love you. You should know this. Jason, the studio is gone. Did you do this? Maggie, you did it, not me. Perhaps not physically, but it burned from your deceit and betrayal. When I saw your wedding rings discarded and you giving yourself to another, in my heart, you died. Your actions are unforgivable, and Brandi's involvement is humiliating and beyond comprehension. We're finished. I'll meet with lawyers on Monday to initiate proceedings. Please, Jason, can't we talk and resolve this? You can't just discard our 30 wonderful years like this. Maggie, we are talking, and I'm not the one who discarded our 30 wonderful years. You planned betrayal, showered me with 2 weeks of affection to alleviate your guilt, and then betrayed me with your daughter's assistance. There's no person on this earth who could accept or forgive such treachery and betrayal. It was pure evil, and I hope you regret it for the rest of your miserable life. This is our last conversation. You can reach me through my attorney's details, which will be provided with the divorce decree. Goodbye, Maggie. Jason, no, wait! Jason! Jason was gone, and so was the world I cherished. Brandi arrived just as I was on the phone calling Jason, who had already hung up. We embraced each other, crying over our loss. Finally, we realized we couldn't stay in the wreckage of my home while the fire and police did their investigation. So we headed to Brandi's house. Upon arrival, she briefed Mike on everything, shocking him with the details. Brandi tried to explain it all, but when Mike discovered his wife had arranged a date for her friend's father with her own mother, he was both appalled and furious, his anger flaring. Brandi, you set up a date for your mom with another man, knowing Dad would be left alone? You should have known he'd never accept that. What kind of man lets his wife go on a date with someone else? Is this what you plan to do when we're older? Will you willingly betray me like Mom did to Dad? He was such a great guy, and you and Mom were his whole world. What have you done, Brandi? Let me tell you, you ruined a good man and forced him into doing unimaginable things. I can't express how disappointed I am in you, Brandi. I'll reach out to him and apologize for your foolishness. Once this is all over, you and I need to talk about our future together. Having kids with you is on hold until I figure out where you stand. I'll be straight with you. I don't share your values, and I won't stand for this kind of betrayal. His anger shocked her, surprised by his lack of understanding for her mother's situation. It was just one date after 30 years of marriage, for heaven's sake. So what? Later, she realized the real issue was the end of her parents' marriage, her father's loss, and her mother's shattered happiness. Soon, they'd all face the consequences of her actions. 5 long days later, I returned home to assess the damage. I opted against filing an insurance claim to avoid more potential costs. In my lawyer meeting, I made clear the house was mine, not up for debate. Maggie could have half our savings, but no child support. If she resisted, I'd sue for adultery, exposing her affair with her daughter's friend's father. Divorce papers were already in motion. I also sought advice on criminal arson charges, but learned without an insurance claim it likely wouldn't proceed unless I made a false report. A neighbor, who Brandi went to school with, phoned her when she saw me return home and go inside. Brandi hurried over to me. I was checking the damage and figuring out what repairs the house needed when I heard the front door open. "Dad! Dad! Where are you?" Brandi's voice echoed through the house as she entered. I stayed silent, focused on assessing the damage. Looking out the window at the pile of ashes that was once Maggie's sanctuary, I couldn't help but smile. Brandi found me in one of the bedrooms and rushed over, wrapping me in a hug. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. Please forgive us. We love you." "Brandi, I can't forgive either of you. I already said not to talk to me again. Please let me go and leave me alone. You say you're my daughter, and I must forgive you. Listen, you're no longer my daughter, just a deceitful person who broke my heart. Now, leave me alone." "Dad, Mom needs you. She's living with us and misses you terribly. She cries all the time and wants to apologize to you for her mistake. Can you come to our house and see her?" "Never. When she went on that date and stayed with another man, our marriage ended. She even left her wedding rings behind, sealing the end of our marriage. It's done, and I won't speak to her again. Both of you can reach me through my lawyer. I'll get a new phone and number today, but for now you should go and be with your cheating mother." "Are you really willing to throw away 30 years of happiness with Mom?" "No, not me. Your mother threw away those 30 years as soon as she took off her rings and went to her lover. It was you and your mother who destroyed my 30 years of happiness, and for that, I'll never forgive or forget. Now, get out of my house." For the second time, Brandi ran out of her childhood home in tears. Her dad's words declaring she was no longer his daughter were devastating. Even years of therapy couldn't erase the pain of his words. The following day, Maggie received divorce papers and crumpled, realizing her affair ended her marriage. She tried to reason, went to counseling, attempted to speak with Jason, but all efforts were fruitless. He cut off contact with her and Brandi. Mike eventually reached Jason, expressing anger and disappointment over their actions. He reconsidered having kids due to Brandi's disloyalty and is currently in couples counseling to save their marriage. Maggie hoped to return home after Jason rebuilt it, but the divorce stated it's his. She received half their savings and $3,000 monthly child support for 10 years, though he refused to pay. Now she must find work after 30 years of relying on Jason. She moved from her daughter's place to a small apartment near the city center, working at an art gallery to get by. Maggie's artistic freedom was suddenly at risk. She won't spend all her time in Jason's lovely studio anymore. Nor can she sit in front of her art projects, enjoying the lake view from the big windows her husband gifted her. Soon, work will consume her, leaving no free time to reclaim her old life. All her free time vanished, along with luxury and marital bliss, all for one reckless night with another man. She'll never have enough tears to erase the hurt caused by that one mistake. No, Jason, her loving husband, will never speak to her again. Hearing he disowned their daughter shattered Brandi's heart. She sank into depression over her parents' split. To save her own marriage, now falling apart, she sought help from a therapist. Months later, the house was fixed. Jason kept up with court-ordered payments, then sold the house suddenly. After the sale, Maggie came to reconcile, only to find a young couple at the door. "Hello, can we help you?" the woman asked. "I'm looking for Jason Spencer. Is he here?" "No, he sold us this house and left for a new life. He was so kind. Are you Maggie?" "Yes, that's me. He left an envelope for me, I suppose." "Indeed. I'll read it later. Goodbye and enjoy your new home," Maggie said, tears streaming, realizing she'd never see Jason again, regretting the love she carelessly lost. Back in her lonely apartment, she opened the letter with trembling hands. "Maggie, 3 decades. And to think I could have spent that time more productively, like watching paint dry or counting the blades of grass in our lawn. It's hilarious, really, how I once thought I couldn't be the husband you needed. Clearly, what you needed was a circus, not a partner, considering your antics. You wanted more? Well, congratulations on finally finding it outside our marriage. Bravo. Those 2 weeks you played the doting wife again? Should have known it was just the calm before the storm, a prelude to your grand betrayal. Oh, I was duped, thoroughly conned by your Oscar-worthy performance. Here I was, planning a special night to celebrate us, while you were out celebrating you with someone else. You didn't just break us, Maggie, you nuked us from orbit. So I've done us both a favor and disappeared. That's right, I've left the circus to the clowns and moved on to greener pastures. Don't bother trying to find me. I'm buried under layers of new cities and faces that don't include yours or our daughters. Starting over, you bet, this time in a drama-free zone. And as for our home, consider it just another casualty in your war of selfishness. Sold it. Maybe the new owners can cleanse it of the stench of betrayal. You want closure? Consider this letter it. Wrap it up, tie it with a bow, and shove it in the back of that closet you keep all your other ill-advised decisions. Here's to your new beginnings, Maggie. May they be as fleeting as your loyalty. Farewell, from the man who once loved you, J.S. She thought she was out of tears, but after she read his note, she couldn't stop crying all night, hugging her knees tightly. The thrill and memories of the wonderful times with Alexander faded, now overtaken by regret and sorrow. Now at 52 and by herself, she realized her days ahead without Jason looked grim. She traded her lavish lifestyle for a moment of reckless pleasure. Jason confronted Alexander late at night, just as he was about to leave for his new place in Ecuador. When the door swung open, Jason barged in and revealed he was the husband of the woman Alexander took from him. Alexander tried to justify that he believed Maggie was okay with it and would not have gone after her otherwise. But it was all in vain. Jason wouldn't hear any of it. The fury, wrath, and suffering he'd been bearing for months were all unleashed on the man in front of him. The encounter was brief, as Jason resorted to using a crowbar. Within seconds, Alexander's life was altered drastically. Before Jason headed to his waiting Uber to catch a flight out of the country, he left Alexander with a warning about the dangers of getting involved with a married woman. By the time Alexander got to the emergency room and reported the assault, Jason was already settling into his beachfront apartment in Manabi. He had to start anew without his past burdens and family. It took detectives 2 weeks to learn that Jason had left the country, and they realized they couldn't pursue him unless he came back. Even if they located him, Ecuador doesn't extradite for assault charges. Alexander endured a painful 2 weeks in the hospital and months of physical therapy to get back on his feet with new knees. Sadly, the 25 stitches across his face would always remind him of that night and the married woman. Unsure of his future, he knew his old life was gone because of the 2 women who persuaded him to steal another man's wife. He never again contacted Maggie or Brandi. Brandi's husband Mike nearly left her because of what happened, but a psychologist helped Brandi see the error of her ways, and she vowed to stay true to Mike and their future family. Mike waited 2 years before deciding to have kids, needing to be sure his wife wouldn't deceive him like she did her own father. Keeping his promise and her guilt in mind, Jason cut off all ties with Brandi. By her actions, she permanently lost her father's affection. When Maggie and Brandi found out about Alexander's assault, they were heartbroken and felt guilty for their role in the violence, adding to the remorse and suffering they already caused Jason and the breakup of their family. This was yet another sign that their choices had consequences they hadn't imagined. They understood that their foolish hope that allowing Maggie that one indiscretion would keep their life happy was completely misguided. Their error showed that happiness was actually far away from reality. The absence of their father and husband brought them enduring sorrow, a burden they'd carry forever. Overwhelmed by sadness and aging, she never met another partner and led a life filled with loneliness and regret. Her dreams of growing old with Jason and enjoying time with their grandchildren faded into mere memories. With Jason stopping child support after leaving the country, her financial stability was shaky, forcing her to work to make ends meet. Nightly tears became her new norm. I now possess over $750,000 from selling my house and my savings over the last 3 decades after buying my new place. With this wealth, I look forward to a comfortable and peaceful life here in Ecuador for the next 30 years. The local young, attractive women appreciate a generous American, and I relish their company. Half a year following that dreadful night, sitting on the beach across from my new home in Puerto Lopez with a chilled beer, I realized that divorce is part of life. It's fine to part ways. It's fine to be on your own. What's not fine is staying where you're not respected or cherished. I'll make sure I don't find myself in that situation again.